When I started working at the Tower of London 30 years ago, I thought I was just protecting history. I was wrong. In fact, I wasn't protecting history. History was protecting me. And tonight, that protection is coming to an end. My name is William Fletcher, and this is the story of my last night shift at the Tower of London. For 30 years, I have been the guardian of this ancient castle, but now it is time to retire. Young guards can do this job with modern security systems, if only they knew how wrong they are. The story I will tell you tonight will reveal truths you won't find in any history book. If you've ever visited the Tower of London, let me know in the comments. Did you feel anything strange there? A cold touch, an unexpected sound, or the feeling of invisible eyes watching you? Because after this story, you'll never look at the tower the same way again. The Tower of London isn't just a museum. It's a place where 900 years of blood, tears, and death have been lived. And at night, the things that happen here are of a kind no security camera could ever capture. The story I'm about to tell you tonight will reveal one of the tower's darkest secrets. If you love true horror stories, stay with me throughout this narrative, because some secrets only come to light in the darkness. It was a cold Friday night in November. The last tourists had left at 6 p.m., the doors were locked, and I was preparing for the long hours of the night. I put on my Yeoman Warder uniform, the red tunic, the hat, and of course, my keys. The keys to the tower. These keys don't just open doors, they also control something much older. Deep Marcus Webb, my night shift supervisor, came to brief me one last time. Marcus had been working here 10 years less than me, but he had had to learn the night rules. "Fletcher," he said in a serious voice, "this is your last night, but that doesn't mean you can slack off." "Of course not, Marcus. I've been following these rules for 30 years. "Good, because tonight looks like it's going to be a particularly active night." "What do you mean?" Marcus looked out the window. Outside, the full moon was slowly rising. "The ravens are very tense today. And there are strange sounds coming from Whitechapel." I felt a tightness in my chest. The ravens, the tower's famous ravens, sensed supernatural activity before anyone else. And Whitechapel, that was where Lady Jane Grey was buried. Marcus pulled an old, leather-bound notebook from his pocket. "Let's review it one last time." This notebook contained rules not found in any official records. These rules were protocols passed down from guard to guard at the tower for centuries. Protocols that ensured our survival. Rule 1. When you see Anne Boleyn's ghost, step back. Never run. If you run, she will follow you, and then no one can save you. Rule 2. If the White Lady appears at 2 a.m., say, "Your Majesty," to her and let her pass. This is Lady Jane Grey, and if she is shown respect, she will not harm you. Rule 3. Never wake the ravens before feeding time. They are the guardians of the tower, and if disturbed, their protective spells weaken. Rule 4. If you hear children's voices in the bloody tower, leave the area immediately before the voices stop. 2 young princes are still there, and they try to take the living with them. "Remember, Fletcher," Marcus said as he closed the notebook, "these rules are no joke. Last year, young Johnson didn't take them seriously. I remembered Johnson. He was a bright, young guard. He had resigned after his second night shift. The official reason was personal reasons, but the real reason was that he had followed the children's voices he heard in the bloody tower and what he found there. "What exactly happened to Johnson?" I asked, even though I already knew. "He saw the children, 2 young princes, and they offered him something, to stay with them forever. Johnson almost accepted." "Almost?" "We found him in the morning, on the stairs of Wakefield Tower, unconscious. His hair had turned white, and his eyes were never the same again. He still sees them. He sees them every night and wants to join them." My hair stood on end. "Will they be active tonight too?" "It's a full moon night, Fletcher. They'll all be active. Anne Boleyn, the White Lady, the princes, Henry VI, all of them. And they know this is your last night." "What do you mean?" Marcus's face grew serious. "They recognize the guards who have been here for a long time. They like you, Fletcher, and they may not want to let you go." My heart raced. "Are they threatening me?" "No. Worse. They're inviting you to stay here forever. And after 30 years, that invitation might be very tempting." Marcus was right. I had been working with these spirits for 30 years. I knew them, and they knew me. The normal world no longer felt so real, but the tower was always real. "Be careful, Fletcher," Marcus said as he walked toward the door. "And remember, you have to hold out until morning. Just until morning." After Marcus left, I was alone. The tower's nighttime silence descended around me. But this silence was never complete silence. There was always something happening. Soft sounds, movements, breaths. I began my first patrol at 9 p.m. I walked through Tower Green toward the old execution site. Here, for centuries, the heads of royal members had been severed. Anne Boleyn, Catherine Howard, Lady Jane Grey. Their blood had mingled with this soil. In the moonlight, the execution block shone like silver. And there, beside the block, stood a familiar figure. It was Anne Boleyn. She was dressed in white, her long hair cascading over her shoulders. But her head was missing. She was holding her head in her hands as if she were carrying a bag. Rule number 1, back away, never run. I slowly stepped back. Anne Boleyn noticed me and lifted her head to look at me. Her eyes were still alive, but her expression was melancholy. "William," she said, her voice sounding like the wind, "your last night." I didn't know if I should speak. The rules didn't specify that. "Yes, Your Majesty," I said carefully. "We will be very alone here," Anne said. "If you leave, who will talk to us? Who will understand us?" These words squeezed my heart. I had lived with them for 30 years. I knew them, and they knew me. They were like family. "New guards will come," I said. Anne shook her head. "But they're not you, William. They don't love us. They're afraid of us." She was right. The new generation of guards saw these spirits as nothing more than a threat. They couldn't understand their stories, their pain, their loneliness. "Stay with us, William," Anne said, approaching me. "Stay with us forever. You won't grow old anymore. You won't suffer anymore. You'll just be here, with us." I couldn't deny how tempting the offer was. Retirement, loneliness, old age, all of that was waiting for me. But here, everything was familiar, safe. I need to think about it, I said. Anne smiled. Of course, William. You have all night. But don't forget, this offer is only valid tonight. As I walked towards the bloody tower at 11:30 p.m., I thought about how every stone in the tower had a story to tell. These walls had witnessed royal intrigues, betrayals, loves and deaths. And now, all these stories were coming to life throughout the night. The bloody tower was the most famous and most cursed part of the tower complex. Here, two young princes, Edward V and his brother Richard, had mysteriously disappeared in 1483. Official records state they were murdered, but their bodies were never found. But I knew where they were. They were here every night. As I climbed the tower's stairs, I felt that familiar chill. The air suddenly lost its warmth, and my breath began to steam. This meant they were nearby. Faint sounds came from the third floor. Children's voices, playful sounds, laughing, running, the sounds normal children would make. But these sounds had been going on for 500 years.
Dutifully, rule number 4. If you hear children's voices coming from the bloody tower, leave the area immediately. But tonight was different. The children's voices stopped, and another voice took their place. A voice calling me. William! Uncle William! I froze. I had been hearing these voices for 30 years, but they had never called me directly before. Uncle William, come up, play with us. My heart began to race. The rules were clear. It was forbidden to follow the children's voices, but they were calling me Uncle. For 30 years I had heard them every night, learned their stories, and felt sympathy for them. We're so lonely, Uncle William. Only you understand us. That was true. I truly understood them. Two little children, victims of political games, torn from their families, then lost. Who knows what they had endured in their final days? I took a step toward the stairs. No, William, a voice said behind me. It was Anne Boleyn's voice. Don't go there. They're dangerous.
Why? I asked, turning around. Because they are children. They are innocent, and the desires of the innocent are the strongest. If you start playing with them, you have to stay with them forever. But they're just two little children. No, William, they are no longer children. They have been here for 500 years, and in that time, they have changed. If they want you as a playmate now, they won't let you go. Voices came from above again. Uncle William, why aren't you coming? Are you afraid of us? I'm not afraid, I shouted up. But I can't come now. Why? Because I'm on duty. There was silence. Then I heard a different voice, an older, more serious child's voice. Uncle William, we're on duty too. We're here to protect this place. And if you leave, who will help us? Who will be with us? These words deeply affected me. They were truly alone. For 500 years in this tower, without any friends. Anne Boleyn took my hand. Her hand was ice cold, but it was still comforting. Know this, William. If you join them, there will be no turning back. Their games will last forever. About you, I asked Anne Boleyn. You're alone too. I am an adult, William. I can handle loneliness. But they They are children, and children's loneliness is much more painful. Voices came from above again. This is your last chance, Uncle William. Come with us, or we will never forgive you. I had to take this threat seriously. The two princes might have lost their innocence, but they hadn't lost their power. I'm coming, I shouted up, but only for a little while. Anne Boleyn's hand suddenly relaxed. William, no! Just 10 minutes. I owe them that much.
I started climbing the stairs. The air grew colder with every step. When I reached the 3rd floor, I looked into the old prince's chambers. 2 children were waiting there, Edward and Richard, but they were very different from how they had been 30 years ago. More pale, more transparent, and their eyes were very old. Children's bodies, but adult eyes. Uncle William, said little Richard, you finally came. Play with us, said Edward. No one has played with us in a very long time. What do you want to play? I asked. Hide and seek, said Richard. You'll count and we'll hide. But remember, Edward said seriously, if you can't find us, you have to stay with us. Forever. Alarm bells started ringing inside me. This wasn't a game. It was a trap. What are the rules? I asked. Simple, Richard said. Close your eyes, count to 10, then look for us. If you can't find us by morning, you'll stay with us, Edward finished. What would you do at this point? Could you refuse the children's request, or would you accept this dangerous game? All right, I finally said, but it's just a game. The children clapped their hands in delight. Start, said Edward. I closed my eyes and began counting. 1, 2, 3. The children's footsteps echoed down the corridors, growing fainter. But these footsteps weren't normal. They were very light, as if they were running in the air rather than on the ground. 98, 99, 100. I opened my eyes. The corridor was empty, and in that moment I realized all sound in the tower had ceased. Nothing could be heard, as if the entire building had held its breath. Edward, Richard, where are you? There was no response. The game had begun, and if I lost, I would be trapped here forever. When the clock struck midnight, the search began. The tower's complex corridor system offered countless hidden corners for the two children's game of hide-and-seek, which had been going on for 500 years. I decided to check the White Tower first. It was the oldest and most central building in the tower complex. If they were hiding anywhere, it would probably be here. But as I climbed the stairs, I encountered something else. The second rule came to mind. If the White Lady appears at 2 a.m., say, Your Majesty, and let her pass. But it was still midnight, and at the end of the corridor stood a figure in white. Lady Jane Grey, the 9 Days Queen. At 16, she had been a victim of royal intrigue and had her head cut off. Your Majesty, I said respectfully. Jane Grey approached me. Unlike Anne Boleyn, her head was intact, but there was a thin red line around her neck. You're looking for the children. Yes, Your Majesty. We're playing with them. Jane smiled sadly. This isn't a game, William. It's a test. And if you fail... What's really going on?
Jane looked out the window. "Tonight, all the tower's inhabitants will decide your fate. Will you stay or will you go? The children are testing you. If you can find them, you'll prove that you truly love them. And if I can't find them, then you'll become their toy forever." My hair stood on end. "Can you help me?" Jane shook her head. "This is your test, William, but I can give you a hint. Children always hide in their favorite places." "Where are their favorite places?" "You should know that. You've been listening to them for 30 years. What have you learned about them?" I started thinking. Edward and Richard. I had been listening to their stories for years. Edward was the heir to the throne, a serious and responsible child. Richard was younger, more playful, more innocent. Edward always talked about safe places. Safety was important to him. Richard, on the other hand, liked high places. He always talked about looking out of windows and climbing to the top of towers. "Thank you, Your Majesty," I said to Jane. Jane smiled and slowly began to fade. "Be careful, William, and remember, you have until morning." After Jane disappeared, I began to formulate my strategy. Edward liked safe places. He was probably hiding in the basement or in rooms with thick walls. Richard, on the other hand, liked high places. He could be in the towers or on the rooftops. I decided to look for Edward first. I went down to the basement of the White Tower. This used to be an old cellar and torture chamber. The walls were thick, the windows small, and no sound came from outside. It was the perfect hiding place for Edward. As I walked through the old cellars, I heard footsteps. But they weren't mine. They were ahead of me, as if someone were following my path. "Edward!" I called out. "Are you here?" Only an echo answered me. I entered the old torture chamber. Here, for centuries, people had been tortured, forced to reveal their secrets. The old chain links still hung on the walls. And there, in the corner of the room, stood a small figure. It was Edward, but he looked different from before, older, more serious, and there was something in his eyes. Fear or something else? "Edward," I said joyfully, "I found you!" Edward looked at me, but didn't smile. "You found me, Uncle William, but this is only the beginning." "What do you mean?" "You must also find Richard. If you don't find both of us, the game won't end." "Where is Richard?" Edward smiled, but it was a cold, strange smile. "He's in his favorite place. But getting there is very difficult." "Where?" "At the top of the bell tower, in the highest window." "But Uncle William," Edward's voice grew serious, "be very careful when you go up there, because on that path, there are other things on that path." "Other things?" "The tower's guardians, the ravens, and they're very tense tonight." After that night, I was never the same again. What I saw and experienced changed me forever. But that was only the beginning. The real test was yet to come. Edward suddenly disappeared, as if he had never been there. I had found a child, but the game was not over yet. As I walked toward the bell tower, I noticed strange sounds coming from outside, the sounds of ravens, But these weren't normal raven sounds. They were deeper, more metallic, more human-like. The third rule echoed in my mind: never wake the ravens before feeding time. But they were already awake and very active. When I stepped out into the outer courtyard of the tower, I saw them. 7 large ravens were circling around the bell tower, but their flight was not normal. It was very orderly, very deliberate, as if they were performing a ritual. The ravens were known as the guardians of the tower. According to legend, if the ravens ever left the tower, both the tower and the royal family would be doomed. But this wasn't just a legend. The ravens were truly supernatural beings protecting the tower. As I approached the bell tower, the ravens noticed me. They stopped flying and began walking toward me. Their eyes shone as if there were fire within them. The largest one, probably Moonin, leapt toward me and spoke. Yes, spoke. "Fletcher," he said in a deep voice, "what are you doing here?" "I'm looking for Richard," I said, startled. "Prince Richard," said another raven. "He is someone we protect." "Why?" "Because he was innocent," said the third raven, "and protecting the innocent is our duty." "I won't harm him. I just want to finish our game." The ravens looked at each other. Then Moonin spoke again. "If you truly love him, you can reach him. But if you try to use him, if you try to capture him, you will face us." "I love him," I said sincerely. "I've been listening to his voice for 30 years. I feel his loneliness." The ravens remained silent for a moment. Then they slowly stepped aside. "Go," said Moonin, "but be careful. The top of the tower is very high, and Richard is now very powerful." I opened the door of the bell tower and went inside. Narrow stone steps led upward. Each step creaked with age and decay. And from above I could hear faint children's voices. "Uncle William, you're here! But will you be able to get out?" It was Richard's voice, but the voice was coming from far above. I would have to climb to the top floor. I started climbing. With each step, breathing became more difficult. Not just from fatigue, the air was growing colder and heavier. I stopped on the 20th step. Richard's voice came from above. "Are you scared, Uncle William?" "No," I shouted. "I'm just resting." "You're too slow. When I was 5 years old, I could climb these stairs much faster." This made me laugh. Even though he had been dead for 500 years, Richard still had the spirit of a child. I continued climbing. On the 30th step, I noticed strange shadows moving on the walls. But I was holding my lantern steady. The shadows should not have been moving. These shadows were moving on their own. I stopped on the 45th step because someone was standing in front of me. The ghost of Henry VI, who had died here in Wakefield Tower. Or rather, he had been killed here. He was a weak king, but a good man, and now he was standing there in the middle of my staircase. Rule number 5. If the spirit of Henry VI appears in Wakefield Tower, pray to him and say Requiescat in pace in Latin. But this was the bell tower, not Wakefield Tower. Did the rules apply here? Henry VI looked at me with sad eyes. "William," he said softly, "you look very tired." "Your Majesty," I said respectfully, "I am looking for Richard." "I know. But, William, This exit is very difficult. Perhaps you should stay here with me." "Why, Your Majesty?" "Because up there, Richard is no longer just Richard. He carries the souls of all the innocents of the tower, and if you reach him, you will become a part of him." "What do you mean?" Henry VI reached out his hand. "Stay with me, William. I am at peace. I have felt no pain since my death. But up there there is pain, so much pain." I hesitated. Henry's offer was tempting. Peace, freedom from pain. But could I abandon Richard? "Your Majesty," I said, "I promised him. I promised I would find him." Henry VI shook his head. "I understand. Then go. But remember, requiescat in pace, William. Say it for all of us." "Requiescat in pace," I said. Henry VI smiled and slowly faded away. I continued climbing. 60, 70, 80 steps. The top of the bell tower was very high, and with each step, Richard's voice grew clearer. "You're very close, Uncle William, but the last part is the hardest." At the 95th step, I reached the door to the top floor of the bell tower. The door was open, and candlelight was seeping out from inside. I went inside. The room was small and circular in shape. 4 windows faced 4 directions, and in the center of the room stood little Richard. But this Richard was much different from the other one. He was much brighter, much more real-looking, and his eyes bore the pain of the entire tower. "You've finally come, Uncle William," said Richard. "It took you a long time." "I found you," I said, out of breath. "Yes, but now the real question is, you found me, but what will you do?" "The game is over, Richard. I found both of you." "No, Uncle William, the game is just beginning, because now you have to make a choice." "What kind of choice?" Richard looked out the window. The entire tower complex was visible outside. "You can jump out this window, Uncle William, and then you'll be with us forever. You won't feel any pain, you won't feel any sorrow. You'll just play with us." Or you can leave, but then you'll leave us alone, and we're very lonely, Uncle William. What would you do in this situation? Could you leave 2 orphan children alone, or would you agree to stay with them forever? "Richard," I said carefully, "I love you. I love both of you, but I'm still alive, and living people have responsibilities." "What kind of responsibilities?" "To tell your story, to tell people what happened here, to share your pain." Richard paused. "Really? You'll really tell our story?" "Yes, every chance I get." Richard looked at Edward, who had also entered the room. The 2 brothers looked at each other, communicating silently. "All right, Uncle William," Richard finally said. "You can go. But don't forget us. I'll never forget you. And, Uncle William, come visit us sometimes. We're very lonely." "I will. I promise." When I descended from the bell tower, it was 3:30 a.m. There were only a few hours left until morning. I had won the game and found the children, but the spirits of the tower had not yet finished their business with me. When I returned to Tower Green, I saw that there was a gathering there. All the ghosts of the tower had gathered there. Anne Boleyn, Lady Jane Grey, Henry VI, the 2 princes, and many others, all those who had been executed, died, or disappeared in the tower. In the moonlight, it was like a real courtroom. Anne Boleyn stepped forward. "William," she said, "you found the children. Congratulations." "Thank you. But now the time has come for the real decision. We, the inhabitants of the tower, will decide your future." "What kind of decision?" Lady Jane Grey stepped forward. "You have lived with us for 30 years, William. You have shared our pain, listened to our stories, understood us. Now you are one of us." "But I am still alive." "Are you alive?" asked Henry VI. "Really? Or have you slowly slipped into our world over the past 30 years? This question made me think. In recent years, the normal world had indeed felt increasingly distant. The only place I felt truly at home was the tower. "Stay with us, William," said little Richard. "You're family now." "Yes," said Edward, "you never judged us, you never feared us, you loved us." The other ghosts joined in. "Stay, William, stay with us, forever." I can't deny how tempting their offer was. Here I would never grow old, never get sick, never be alone. Every night I would be with these wonderful spirits. But then I thought of Sarah, my wife, 35 years of marriage. My children, my grandchildren, they were waiting for me too.
"I love you," I said, "all of you, but my place is still among the living." Anne Boleyn smiled sadly. "We understand, William, but don't forget, our door is always open." "And we'll be here," said Jane, "always." The ghosts began to slowly disperse, but Richard ran over and took my hand. His hand was very cold, but it was also very real. "Uncle William," he said, "I have one last request." "What is it, Richard?" "Tell our story. Tell people that not only bad things happened here. There was love, there was hope, and we still hope." "What do you hope for?" "To find peace one day, to truly rest one day." "Is that hope enough for you?" "For now, it is."
At 6 a.m., the morning shift arrived. Marcus Webb and 2 young guards entered through the tower's gate. The morning light reflected off the tower's stone walls, making it seem as if none of the supernatural events that had occurred during the night had ever happened. "Fletcher," Marcus said breathlessly, "how was last night? Everything okay?" "Eventful," I said simply, but there was weariness in my voice, not just physical weariness, mental weariness. "Did something happen?" There was concern in Marcus's eyes. He had known me for 30 years and could tell that I was different this morning. "I said goodbye to some old friends," I said, looking at Tower Green. In the sunlight, the execution block looked innocent, but I could still see Anne Boleyn there. Marcus furrowed his brow. "Did you talk to them? Fletcher, you know the rules." "I've followed the rules for 30 years, Marcus, but tonight was different. Tonight they wanted to say goodbye to me one last time." "And you, how did you respond?" "I listened to them. I listened to their stories, and I promised them I would tell their stories." One of the young guards, Tom Harrison, stepped forward curiously. He was 23 years old and had just started working at the tower. "Mr. Fletcher," he said hesitantly, "are there really ghosts here?" Marcus gave him a stern look. "Harrison, you shouldn't ask questions like that. Official policy." "No, Marcus," I said, raising my hand. "Tom needs to know, especially if he's going to work the night shift." I turned to Tom. "Yes, Tom, there are spirits here, lots of them. And if you're going to work here, you need to treat them with respect."
Tom's eyes widened. How? I mean, what should I do if I see them? Listen to them. Learn their stories. Don't just see them as objects of fear. They were people, Tom. Real people. They suffered. They loved. They hoped. They died. And now they're still here because they haven't found peace yet. The second young guard, David Mills, asked skeptically, "But Mr. Fletcher, aren't these just stories? I mean, do you really believe in them?" I smiled. David's skepticism was perfectly normal. I had thought the same way 30 years ago. "David," I said, "on your first night shift at 2 a.m., when you see the White Lady, then you'll understand, or when you hear the children's voices from the Bloody Tower, or when the ravens start talking to you."
"Do ravens talk?" Tom asked, in surprise. "If you spend enough time with them, yes. They are the true guardians of the tower. They were here long before us, and they will be here long after us." Marcus took the keys from me. Heavy, iron keys, a centuries-old tradition. "Fletcher, what will you do in retirement?" "I will write," I said firmly. "What will you write?" "Their stories, the true stories of the tower. People only hear stories of blood and violence, but there was love here, sacrifice, hope, and most importantly, there are still spirits living here." "No one will believe it," Marcus said skeptically. "Maybe, but at least it will be told. And maybe, just maybe, future guardians will read these stories and understand them better." Tom stepped forward. "Mr. Fletcher, what's your advice for me? I'm just starting out, and to be honest, I'm a little scared." "Fear is normal, Tom," I said. "I was afraid 30 years ago too. But learn this. Once they realize you won't harm them, they'll protect you. Show respect to Anne Boleyn. Listen to the princes. Pray for Henry VI. And most importantly, don't leave them alone." If you were in my place, what advice would you give Tom? What rules would you teach him to protect this young guard? Let me know in the comments, because working at the tower isn't just a job, it's a responsibility. David was still skeptical. "Well, Mr. Fletcher, if there really are ghosts, why don't they appear at night? Where are they during the day?" "Good question, David. They're always here, but during the day the energy of the tourists, the noise of modern life keeps them in the shadows. At night, when everything calms down, the past comes to the surface." "And what do they want?" "To be remembered, to be understood. And some are still seeking peace." Marcus looked at his watch. "Fletcher, your home is waiting for you. Sarah must be worried." He was right. Sarah, my wife, was preparing breakfast at home. In 35 years of marriage, I had never fully told her about what happened at the tower. How could I? Who would believe me? As I stepped out of the tower gate, I looked back one last time. The sun was rising, and the old stone walls glowed golden. It was a beautiful sight, but I didn't just see the beauty. Through the windows, I saw faint figures waving at me. Anne Boleyn, from her window on Tower Green, Lady Jane Grey from the door of Whitechapel, and from the top of the bell tower, two small hands, Edward and Richard. I waved back at them. "See you soon," I whispered. "I'll tell your story. I promise." Anne Boleyn's voice came on the wind. "Thank you, William. We'll never forget you." As I walked out the door, Tom ran after me. "Mr. Fletcher, one last question." "Yes, Tom?" They don't want to come with you? I mean, do they want to leave you?" I stopped. This was a very deep question. "Tom," I said slowly, "they love me, and I love them. But true love is wanting the person you love to be happy. They let me go so that I could be happy." "What about you? Are you happy about leaving?" I didn't know how to answer that question. On one hand, there was the excitement of retiring. On the other hand, On the other hand, I was leaving behind the life I had known for 30 years. Tom, I said finally, happiness isn't just a place. Happiness is living a meaningful life. Over the past 30 years, I've lived a meaningful life. I helped them, and they helped me. Now it's time to share their stories with the world. Tom nodded. I understand. And after you leave, will you stay in touch with them? Of course. I'll come visit them once a month, and when I finish writing my book, I'll bring you the first copy. Tom smiled. Thank you very much, Mr. Fletcher. I won't let you down. I know, Tom, you'll be a good guardian. Just remember, respect, understanding, and compassion. Those 3 things will keep you safe.
3 years later, my book, The True Stories of the Tower of London, Memoirs of a Guard, was published and achieved unexpected success. It made the bestseller list, and people began to look at the tower differently. But most importantly, the young guards at the tower read the book. Marcus Webb called me. Fletcher, this book has changed everything. Our guards no longer fear the spirits. They understand them. And the spirits seem calmer too. This made me very happy. That was the purpose of the book. Tom Harrison wrote me a long letter. Mr. Fletcher, I read your book, and now everything is much clearer. I spoke with Anne Boleyn last night. I told her about your book, and she cried. She cried with joy. Finally, someone understands us, she said. Night shifts no longer seem terrifying, because I'm not alone. They're with me. David Mills had also changed. The young guard who was initially skeptical was now one of the most understanding guards at the tower. In the email he sent me, he wrote, Mr. Fletcher, you were right. I was scared the first night I saw the White Lady, but then I remembered your book. I said, Your Majesty, and bowed respectfully. She smiled at me. That night I realized they're not our enemies. They're our heritage that we need to protect. The book's success also caught the media's attention. I did an interview on the BBC and appeared on various radio programs. Each time I said the same thing. These spirits are not just horror stories. They're the spirits of real people. And when you show them respect, they show you respect in return. But the biggest change was among the tourists visiting the tower. They were no longer just seeking fear. They were looking for stories. They were looking for understanding. I visit the tower once a month. Marcus gives me special permission, and I can go before the shift change. These visits bring both nostalgia and happiness. When I went last month, Anne Boleyn talked to me at length. William, she said, thanks to your book, people now see us differently. They're not afraid of us. They understand us. And this makes us very happy. How do you feel now, Anne? Lighter. As if a burden I've been carrying for years is lifting. Because people no longer see me as just the woman whose head was cut off. They see me as a woman who loved, who dreamed, who feared. The 2 princes had also changed greatly. They no longer seemed as lonely.
Uncle William, Richard said last week, now many guards play with us. They used to be afraid of us, but now they understand that we just want to play. And the best part, Edward said, is that now no guards interfere with our games, because they know the rules. This was very important. The rules I had written in my book had become a guide for the new generation of guards. Henry VI also seemed at peace. William, he said during my last visit, they are listening to the prayers more now, and this soothes my soul. If you had experienced this story, would you have shared these experiences, or would you have kept silent and kept them to yourselves?
Because sometimes the greatest courage is to speak the truth, no matter who believes it. I am now writing the second volume of the book. This time, it's not just about the tower, but about the spirits at other historical sites in England. Windsor Castle, Hampton Court, Edinburgh Castle. Each has its own story. Last month, a guard from Buckingham Palace reached out to me. "Mr. Fletcher," he said, "we have stories too. Will you tell them?" Of course I agreed, because everywhere, in every historic building, there are stories waiting to be told. Sarah is more relaxed now. "You're at peace with your nights now," she says. "You used to seem to miss them all the time. Now you look peaceful." She's right, because I know I haven't left them behind. As long as I keep telling their stories, my connection to them will continue. Last week, a young guard girl who had just started at the tower, Emily Watson, wrote me a letter. "Mr. Fletcher, my first night was very scary, but I read your book and followed the rules. When Anne Boleyn saw me, she smiled. And that night, I wasn't afraid, because I understood that they are not our enemies. They are our history, our heritage." This letter moved me deeply, because Emily was right. These spirits are not our enemies. They are our history, our heritage. Tonight, as I sit in my home, I look out the window at the tower. Behind those ancient walls, my old friends continue to live on. But they are no longer alone. They are now understood. And I am at peace, because I kept my promise to them. I told their stories. Thank you for listening to this story. Let me know in the comments, if you visited the Tower of London, did you feel anything strange there? An unexpected chill, a mysterious sound, or the feeling of invisible eyes watching you? And if you were in William's place, would you share these stories with the world? If you've had paranormal experiences, don't forget to share them. Don't forget to subscribe for more real horror stories, because the secrets of England's oldest castles are still waiting to be told.